Today we're going to practice more with quadratic formula. So we'll do a few examples together and then you'll have time in class to practice and ask questions. So the directions are use quadratic formula to find the solutions to the following quadratics. Sketch the graph after you are done. So the first step is, in order to use quadratic formula, you have to get 0 on one side. So here, we're going to add 3 to each side. So we'll end up with 0 equals 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. Next step is we'll find a, b, and c. A is the number next to the x squared. So here a is 2. B is the number next to the x, 7. And c is the number by itself, so 3. Next step, we'll plug into quadratic formula, which we have right here. So x will be opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So we'll plug in, and then I'll have you calculate these 3 numbers right here before we put in our final answer. So we'll have x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 7 squared, so I'm just going to type it in, 7 squared minus 4 times 2 times 3, so that number is 25. So you can either write the square root of 25 or just 5, and all of that is over 4. And then we split it up. So for one of them, we'll do negative 7 plus 5 divided by 4. For the other one, negative 7 minus 5 divided by 4. And we'll get our 2 answers. So the first one, negative 7 plus 5, is negative 2 divided by 4 is negative 1/2. And the other one, negative 7 minus 5, is negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. So here are the 2 solutions, x equals negative 0.5 and x equals negative 3. So let's talk about what it means when you're using quadratic formula. You're finding the x-intercepts of the graph. So at negative 3, you'll have an x-intercept, and at negative 0.5, you'll have an x-intercept. We know this graph will be skinnier than the parent function, and it will be a smiley face graph. So we can sketch it. We don't have an accurate vertex here, but we do have our x-intercepts. So again, that's what you're solving for when you use quadratic formula, the x-intercepts of the graph. All right, let's try the next one. Again, first step, get everything on one side. So here we can add 6x to each side. So you have x squared plus 6x plus 9, if we put it into standard form, equals 0. Or 0 equals that. I guess I just switched it. That's fine. All right, next up we'll find a, b, and c. So a is the number next to the x. If you don't see a number there, it's a 1. A is the number next to the x squared, so 1. B is the number next to the x, so 6. And c is the number by itself, so 9. Next up we'll plug into quadratic formula. So x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And then I'll have you calculate these 3 numbers right here. So x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of, and this will be 6 squared is 36, and 4 times 9 is 36, so that's actually 0. The square root of 0 is 0, divided by 2. So this has just one answer because negative 6 plus 0 is the same as negative 6 minus 0. So negative 6 over 2 will give us one answer, negative 3. So x is negative 3. And if we were to graph that, okay, so we have negative 3. 1, 2, 3. And then we have a smiley face graph, and it's as wide as the parent function because we have the a value is 1. So if we take a look at that smiling, here's a sketch of what that could look like, and again, we have 1 x-intercept when we have the square root of 0. All right, let's try another one. So again, first step, get everything on one side. So for this one, we can add 2x, subtract 3. Oopsies. So we'll get 0 equals x squared minus 2x plus 2. All right, next step, find A, B, and C. So A is the number next to the x squared, so 1. B is the number next to the x negative 2. C is the number by itself, 2. And then we plug into quadratic formula. X equals opposite B. Oh, and the opposite of negative 2 is 2. Plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Then we'll calculate these three numbers right here. And we get x equals 2 plus or minus the square root of, let's see, that would be a 4 minus an 8, which is negative 4, all over 2. And we talked about if you try to type in the square root of negative 4, that's undefined. So we have no real solution because we can't calculate that number. And what our graph would look like, and actually we'll just type this in. You want to see what this graph looks like. I'll pull up Desmos. And let's type it in and see what does that graph look like if we can't solve it. So it was x squared minus 2x plus 2. And you can see that it doesn't cross the x-axis. There's no real solution. You'll have imaginary solutions, but we will not go over that today. So no real solution would be our answer. And we sketch the graph, and it looks something like this. Okay, so your assignment is, again, to practice quadratic formula. If you need more scratch paper, I'll hand that out in class. And we'll go over any questions that you have in class as well.